All right, well, here's a crazy story coming out of my former place of residence, Tarrant County, Texas. The New York Daily News goes on. Texas woman gets 5 years for voting illegally in 2016 election. You don't say. All right, well, a woman was sentenced to 5 years in prison on Wednesday for illegally voting in the 2016 presidential election. Crystal Mason of Tarrant County, Texas, was on supervised release for tax fraud when her mother insisted she cast her vote, the Star Telegram reported. Convicted felons are not allowed to register to vote in Texas, and voting rights can be restored only after the sentence, including a supervised release, has been completed. The 43-year-old had no idea she was barred from voting, and when her name could not be found on the list of registered voters, a poll worker handed her a provisional ballot. Okay, so when you're on parole or supervised, supervised release or probation, you have a set of rules you have to follow. I mean, I'm not even gonna cast shade at her for not knowing that felons couldn't vote before she was in prison or while she was in prison. But when you get out, there's a lot of things that they tell you, the paperwork I'm sure you go through, and in each state, there's different degrees of eligibility for felons to be able to vote. And some, you're not able to vote at all, which is pretty ridiculous, in my opinion. It's Florida, Kentucky, Virginia, and one other state I can't remember right off the top of my head that don't allow you to vote at all after you get convicted of a felony. But in Texas, they're one of the 23 states that has the rule that, yeah, you can vote so long as you get off of the, supervised release or probation and you complete all your stuff. So when you go to vote, you should already know that you're a felon and you can't vote. But let's give her the benefit of the doubt. So she gets this affidavit. I have a copy of it right here. And let me read you the exact text that is in this. It's the highlighted part, which is just the English portion. The other part of it is in Spanish. So, I am a registered voter of this political subdivision in the precinct in which I'm attempting to vote and have not already voted in this election, either in person or by mail. I am a resident of this political subdivision, have not been finally convicted of a felony, or, if a felon, I have completed all of my punishment, including any term of incarceration, parole, supervision, period of probation, or I have been pardoned. I have not been determined by a final judgment of a court exercising probate jurisdiction to be totally mentally incapacitated or partially mentally incapacitated without the right to vote. I understand that giving false information under oath is a misdemeanor, and I understand that it is a felony to the second degree to vote in an election for which I know I am not eligible. So, if you actually read the affidavit that they had you sign, which is a legal document, and I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but I mean, it says it right here in the legal document that giving false information under oath is a misdemeanor, and that knowingly participating in an election, so if you actually went through this and read it, it would have confirmed that yes, you are on supervised release. You are therefore ineligible to vote because of your felony. I mean, that's not difficult to understand. A lot of legal documents are. That's not. So, you have to fill out your social security number, give your driver's license, all your information, and you don't read the actual text of the affidavit itself. I mean, that is irresponsibly stupid. Okay, so let me read, keep reading on here. So in the process, Mason signed that affidavit listing the conditions required to vote. A poll worker later reported problems with her ballot, sparking an investigation. The district attorney's office spokesman, Samantha Jordan, told the Dallas Morning News, convicted felons are not allowed to vote or registered to vote in Texas, and voting rights can be restored only after the sentence, including a supervised release, has been completed, like I said. Mason, who spent nearly 3 years in federal prison for inflating tax returns as part of a tax preparation business she ran with her ex-husband, quote, owned up to her previous wrongdoing and said she would never intentionally try to skirt voting laws. Quote, I was happy enough to come home and see my daughter graduate. My son is about to graduate. Why would I jeopardize that? Not to vote? I didn't even want to go vote, she said. Mason has waived her right to a jury trial while her defense attorney, J.W. Warren Stewart John, has filed a stank. What does ST mean? I've never seen that abbreviation. I don't know. St. John has filed an appeal. You're not getting crocodile tears from me, sweetheart. I'm sorry. I am of the belief that if you're a felon, you should have the right to vote. I believe if you're in prison, you should have the right to vote. But, and there's also, let me just hedge this with one more thing. There's also plenty of things wrong with our criminal justice system where you would get my sympathy. Drug offenders should not be in prison. At least low-level, non-violent drug offenders should not be in prison. Release them all. Release them all now. Give all of them a pardon. But when you commit tax fraud, not only are you saying fuck you to the rest of the taxpayers, whether you're a multi-million-dollar corporation or just the average Joe. I mean, yes, I can go on for hours about rich companies and CEOs not paying any, like Amazon paid 0 federal income tax in 2016. That's insane. They're the most profitable company in the world. Or, I'm not sure if profitable is the right word. Somebody might get mad at me for saying that because I think they just started turning an actual profit. But revenue generating companies in the United States. We had cities, trying to give them all the tax breaks that they could in the world. But we're not going to see Jeff Bezos locked up for tax evasion because he does it through loopholes. But I'm not going to feel sorry for somebody who gets sent to prison for screwing over the taxpayer. And not only that, you're screwing over your 2 kids. So, like I said, don't give me crocodile tears about not being able to see them graduate when you didn't obviously give a fuck about being there for them in high school. You cared more about, yourself and greed, and that's what led you to prison. Now, stupidity is leading you back. I don't think it should be illegal, but it's such a clear violation of state law, and I do believe in the, law and order and rule of law in America. It's the only way you can ensure a civilized society. There has to be a line you draw where you say you can't cross this. And that her only defense is that she didn't read it and didn't know, and woe is me. And even people on the right I've seen coming out and saying, 5 years seems a little harsh. Well, call me conservative when it comes to it, but even though I disagree with the reason, with the law that she broke being illegal, she broke the law so carelessly and so flagrantly that I have no sympathy for her. And I think 5 years is a generous sentence because she could get up to 20 for voting illegally. And it's not the same as voter fraud. I also wanted to mention that because a lot of people have been mixing up the terms voter fraud and illegal voting. voter fraud has a very narrow definition. A voter fraud case takes place when one person steals the identity of another. So if you get a fake social security card or, a dead person's social security number and you're an illegal immigrant and you vote, that would be voter fraud. That is the rarest type of illegal voting, because voter fraud is illegal voting, but illegal voting is not voter fraud in a way. Illegal voting is not the legal definition of voter fraud. I know I'm kind of mincing my words here, but I hope you get what I'm trying to say. And illegal voting would cover the other person. The only other story I remember from last year where somebody was actually convicted and sentenced for illegal voting was another lady from Tarrant County, Texas. I don't know what it is about that particular county that is so, why it's so prevalent that people seem to want to commit illegal voting there. But her name was... Oh, what? I hate the articles that bury the lead. So, alright, what's her name? Rosa Maria Ortega. And she was, And she was brought here into the country as a child. I'm not going to try to read the text on that screen. It's too small, but she was brought here illegally as a child. So, I don't know if she's a dreamer. I think that there's like a certain time frame that dreamers are brought into the program. I could be wrong. Even if she was a dreamer, what she did was so fucking stupid. She actually is a green card holder, but in 2012 and 2014 she voted and was charged with 2 felonies as a result for illegally voting as a non-citizen. Apparently, she thought that her green card was good enough to allow her to vote because it said, because the green cards show that, they have the U.S. stamp on it, I guess. I don't know what made her think that allowed her to vote, unless she really thought she could just get away with it. She was sentenced to 8 years. I think that's an appropriate sentence. Like I said, I still don't like doing that, but when you're not an American citizen, look, I have sympathy for dreamers all day, and I think they should be citizens by now. We need a pathway to citizenship for people who are still considered illegal but have been here for a certain amount of time. I think that it's ludicrous that somebody who was brought here and they had no say in it, no control over the circumstance, should be deported back to a country they never knew in the first place. But you should know better than that. And she has 4 kids, man. They're all from I think ages 13 to 16, yeah. And their mom's gonna be in jail for 8 years, and she's going to get deported back to Mexico whenever she gets released, which is sad because her kids, I don't know what their status is going to be if they get deported back now, or because they were born here, they're actually legal. Obviously they would be citizens. What am I talking about? But so their mom's getting deported back to a country she never knew, and they don't know. I mean, that's tragic, but you can't vote illegally, and even though I don't like the laws under the way they are now, yeah, you violated them and you're gonna be deported back. If it was any other kind of illegal immigrant, somebody who came here illegally, I'm not for that at all. Let me just say that. I think I'm actually for having a tough immigration policy, but fair immigration policy. I don't believe in open borders because you need borders to have a country. If we're going to open the borders, we got to have a world government, and that's a whole nother thing I don't want to dive into right now. But I just thought that this was interesting because for one, I didn't know about the different states and the laws pertaining to felons and their right to vote. I'll throw up a graph really quick. This is a map from the ACLU that shows which states allow felons to vote. As you can see, Vermont and Maine are the only two that allow everybody to vote, even if you are in prison, which I totally agree with. I think if you're going to engage in the political process, you should have every right to. But if, once you're in jail, some rights do get taken away, and I can probably be, I guess I'm just not 100% there. I guess it depends what type of crime it is. There's a lot of things. You might be able to talk me into after you get out of prison. I think once you get out of prison, you should be able to vote, period. I think you should be in prison and be able to vote. But, I'll wait for somebody to change my mind and give me a convincing argument as to why not. Because I think I might be able to be swayed. But, yeah, that's that.